Good morning. This is video number 50 on my page, Advice for Life. And that's a milestone, number 50. So we'll be discussing something a little lighter than previously. What I'd like to talk about today is gifts and talents. All of us have certain gifts and talents, things that we are good at and things that we are not good at. I find in my life, I've been good at so-called difficult and hard things and a complete failure in what may be considered easy things. And so that is an indication that easy things are not always as easy as they may seem to be on the outside. My first example of a difficult thing that I do well and an easy thing that I can't do at all is the following. And perhaps it applies to many of you out there in other subjects. I was hired by a company when I was in my early 20s. I was hired by a company in Italy to be an interpreter and translator for a company in Italy that was trying to import textiles from Libya. And my job was to be a simultaneous and consecutive and translator between English and Italian. So after I was hired, about a week after I was hired and the contracts were about to be finalized with Libya, the Italian government issued tariffs on all textile importations from Libya. So suddenly everything was up in the air again with the company. They needed to sort out the contract with their lawyers. And so they didn't know what to do with me in the meantime. They couldn't fire me because in Italy in those days, once you had a full-time job, you couldn't be fired unless you broke the law. So they couldn't fire me. I wanted to resign because they didn't really need me yet, but I was advised not to by my then fiance, who today is my husband. So they decided they could use me as a receptionist. So they put me at the receptionist desk, which was right in front of the door leading to the offices where I worked. And I had a very, very simple job. There were 3 bells I had to answer. One was the telephone. It didn't ring. It would ring a bell. And the other was the intercom, another bell. Excuse me. And another bell was the front door. When the front door bell rang, I was supposed to push a button on the wall that would open the door, and the door would creep open and reveal who was waiting to get in. When the phone rang, I was supposed to pick up the phone and answer. And when the intercom rang, I was supposed to push a button on the wall near my desk again to speak with the person on the intercom and buzz them in. Very simple, right? I could not do it. The ringtones of these 3 rings, the door, the telephone, and the intercom, were so close together in the musical note sense that I could not distinguish one ring from another. So the bell would ring, I'd say, that must be the front door. And I would push the button to open the front door. The front door would slowly swing open and there would be nobody there. So then it would ring again and I would think it must be the phone this time. And I would pick up the phone and just hear a dial tone. So then I knew it was the intercom. And this went on all day long. I don't think I ever got it right. And everyone in the office could see me and hear me and must have been chuckling to themselves, boy, this interpreter can't do the simplest things. And I couldn't. It turns out that I don't hear the distinction between closely related sounds. They sound like the same note to me. And so, although I love music and I love the rhythm, if I had to distinguish one note close to another, I'm not able to do that. So something that may seem to me to be very, very simple made me realize that actually I could not do that at all. Very embarrassing. That's life humiliating you when you're doing something that's not using the gifts and talents you're supposed to use. Eventually, my company, Capaldo, decided to import from the Orient instead of Libya. And so my boss, myself, and the company lawyer took a plane to Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Taiwan, which then was called Formosa. And when we arrived in Hong Kong, I met up with a longtime friend of mine who had been working for the US government in Hong Kong for a couple of years. And one day, this friend of mine and a friend of hers and myself and my boss were taking a stroll one morning through a high-end section of Hong Kong. And we came upon a jewelry store. And there was a big kiosk in the middle of the sidewalk with this lovely jewelry. And for some reason, everybody stopped to admire this very beautiful watch that was on display. It was a woman's watch. It was gold, and it was inlaid with large precious stones on the wristband. And then the watch was quite beautiful. So we all were looking at this display. And my boss turned to me and said, Donna, I can get you this watch if you like. Now, this watch was quite expensive, and I was his secretary / interpreter. And I knew I did not feel comfortable accepting an expensive gift or any gift from my boss because of the professional relationship which we had. I didn't know I was young, he was married. I didn't think it was a good idea to accept gifts from him. I didn't think his family would be happy about that. And so, in order to maintain my professional integrity, and because of, my desire to do the right thing, I thanked him as politely as I could. And I said, but, I can't accept this gift from you because you're my boss. And he was accepting this quite honest explanation when my friend jumped in with both feet and said, "Oh, Donna, you're crazy. Come on. You can't turn down a gift like that." And she said to my boss, "I'll take it. I'll take the watch." And my boss was put on the spot because, he had already offered the watch. And so he couldn't say no. That would have been kind of unchivalrous. So my friend was quite pushy. And he did. He got the watch for her. And my friend said, "You're crazy," in front of my boss. "You're crazy not to accept the gift. Ha, ha, ha. Really, Donna?" So that was a violation of boundaries. It was my boss, not hers. And we were going back to Italy together, not her, not she. So this was inappropriate. And it was aggressive and hostile to me. And it was demeaning to me. And it was confusing also, aside from all this, for my boss, because he didn't know whether I was being correct professionally or whether she was making it look like I was being rude. I don't know. So in those days, I was very young, and I never knew how to respond to violations of boundary. Clearly, an aggressive, domineering, pushy friend like the one I had is not the kind of a person that I should have been in any kind of a friendship with, much less a relationship, because she was toxic to me in her behavior. But that's just another example of things you can do and can't do well. Two things I couldn't do. I couldn't be a receptionist, and I didn't know how to stop boundary violations. In another occasion, I was in San Francisco working for a foreign government when a colleague of mine went to my boss out of the blue and told my boss a series of lies about me. This may have happened to some of you. It's actually happened to me twice in my work life. And both times it cost me my job because in each case, the boss did not do due diligence and did not investigate to see if the person was telling the truth or not, you know. So I was called into the boss's office with this colleague called Claudia present. And Claudia listed all her lies, blatant lies about me. And I told the boss, I assure you, none of this is true. Not one word. In any case, Claudia didn't even work in my office. It was crazy. And the boss did not do due diligence, and so just fired me outright. About 2 weeks later, while I was still job hunting, Claudia called me up and said, Donna, I don't know if you can ever forgive me for what I did to you when I lied about you. I totally misjudged your character, and I'm very sorry. I hope you can forgive me. So Claudia certainly was brave to ask for forgiveness, and I gave her forgiveness. I forgave her. In the meantime, I was still looking for a job because even though she apologized to me, she really didn't do anything to settle the situation with my ex-boss, who I don't know if she would have had the guts or the integrity to hire me back anyway. But anyway, I found another job at a magazine, as an interpreter. And one of my jobs was simply to distribute the mail. And how did I distribute the mail? There were individual mailboxes lined up against the wall, 3 rows of them. And all I had to do was take the envelopes and put them in the right slot. Sounds easy, right? Well, in front of that mailbox wall was a very wide, deep, heavy wooden and metal table that I think was bolted to the floor. And the table was at least 3.5 feet away from the wall. And I have monovision contact lenses. That is, I have one eye for seeing up close to read and another one for seeing distance. Many of you probably have monovision contact lenses. And the gist of it was I could not read the small names put on the mailboxes from across the table. I would bend over at the hip and literally lie on the table to get as close to the mailboxes as I could. But it was still very difficult to be able to read the names. So there were some mistakes made. Eventually, someone I think was pranking me and they took a whole bunch of mail and put it in the wrong box. I don't know. But obviously, that was supposed to be an easy task that people could do easily. It's not easy. Tasks that seem easy to one person can be very difficult for another. I'm not good at easy, so-called easy tasks. I can do difficult tasks, like being a college professor and teaching English classes and grammar classes and literature classes and Italian language classes and psychology. I'm qualified to teach all these subjects, and that could be considered difficult by some people. But for me, it's easy, and I can interpret simultaneously without any effort or stress at all. So we are each endowed with gifts and talents, and when you fail at something, it simply means that you weren't cut out to do that particular task because your gifts and talents should lead you in another direction. So if you fail at some task or job, don't be discouraged or sad if it costs you your position. It means that you're cut out for something entirely different. And as for the boundary hopping ex-friend that I had, obviously I've forgiven her. I still wish her the best, but I can't be in a relationship with someone who doesn't respect my decisions, my integrity, or my position. Boundaries are also important. So this is a kind of a fun video number 50 on my page, Advice for Life. If you like this video, please put a like underneath. And if you have any comments on these situations, I'll be delighted to read them. So have a lovely weekend, and thank you for listening. Bye.